till here we have done, right? Just slight recapitulation of the story that we read till now, right? Dr. Sadao, a Japanese doctor, surgeon, and a scientist, he comes across a prisoner of war outside his house. The prisoner of war is identified as a soldier from US Navy. This could be identified with the help of his cap where the letters were inscribed. Anyway, the soldier was wounded. He was American. Americans are Japan's enemies. So as a Japanese, he would not incline to help an American soldier. But at the same time, he was a doctor also. So it was the call of his duty, it was the call of his conscience which pricked him and coaxed him to go and help him. However, he is an enemy soldier. So the story is the conflict in the mind of Dr. Sadao, whether to help him or to let him go. Of course, he would not let him go because he was an American soldier. He would definitely hand him over to the Japanese army. He knew if he is handed over to the Japanese army, the Japanese army would not spare him and the man would not survive. He would die. But as a human being, he never wanted him to die, despite knowing the fact that he was an enemy. So the conflict is going on, how to give him shelter, how to help him, how to make him survive, how to heal his wounds. However, after that, he would hand him over to the Japanese army. But he did not want to hand him over to the Japanese army in his wounded condition because he was a doctor. And when he studied medical, when he became a doctor, he had pledged to serve and to help all the mankind. He had not been taught to help those within his territory only. Right? Okay. Now what it is that both the husband and wife, Hana, you learnt about Hana also, how he came into contact with Hana, how they got married. Hana being a Japanese girl whom he met in America when he was studying, right? Now Hana and Dr. Surao, they had been discussing what to do. They decided that he should be taken in. He should be taken to home. But there at home, there were servants. Let me go to the last paragraph on the previous page. Yes. You also cannot throw him back to the sea, Hana said. Then there is only one thing to do. We must carry him into the house. They decided that they should carry him to the house, but the servants were threatening them. How threatening them? There was the fear. If servants had come to know that an American soldier was given a shelter by Dr. Sadao, then they can go and they could complain about him. Whereas he did not want to shelter him, he simply wanted to do his duty as a doctor. Right? So his intent was to give him to the police, but after he healed up, after he is recovered from his injuries. Is that clear? Yes, please start reading from here.
We must simply tell them that we intend to give him to the police, as indeed we must do, Sada. We must think of the children and your position. It would endanger all of us if we did not give this man over a prisoner of war. Certainly, Sadav agreed. I would not think of doing anything else.
Yes.
Thus,
Now here, just a minute, please. Now what it is, they discuss that their intention was not to hide him from the police. Their intention was not to do anything against Japan. They definitely wanted to give him to the police only, and they should, right? But then they decide that yes, if the man is kept in their house, then it is definitely going to have an adverse impact on the children and his own position also. How it is? Because he would be considered unpatriotic, he would be considered a traitor. How traitor? That he is a traitor, that he is befriending with the enemies, right? He would be accused of treason. Treason, that he is betraying his country by giving shelter to his enemies. All these things crop up in his mind, which he discusses, which he shares with his wife also, right? So this is what he says: it would endanger all of us if we did not give this man over as a prisoner of war. He said ultimately he has to hand him over to the Japanese police or the army, but he wants him to be healed first, not in the state he had discovered him, right? Sada also agrees, and he says, I would not think of doing anything else. Meaning he determines, he decides that no, I would cure him first and then I would hand him over to the police. Nothing else I am going to do. Meaning I am not going to keep him there. I am not going to give him shelter otherwise. Right? Yes, carry on, please.
Thus agreed together they lifted the man. He was very light, like a fowl that had been half starved for a long time, until it is only feathers and skeleton. So, his arms hanging, they carried him up the steps into the side door of the house. This door opened into a passage, and down the house, this down
Down the passage.
Down the passage, they carried the man towards an empty bedroom. It had been the bedroom of Sadav's father, and since his death, it had not been used. They laid the man on the deeply matted floor. Everything here had been Japanese deeply to please the old man, who would never in his own home sit on a chair or sleep in a foreign bed. Hannah went to the wall cupboards and slid back a door and took out a soft quilt. She hesitated. The quilt was covered with a flowered silk and the lining was pure white silk.
Yes, this passage particularly describes that how the arrangements had been done in Dr. Sadav's father's room. Dr. Sadav's father is no more now. He was a traditional man. So is the setting of his room. He was a very traditional man. Everything you would find in his room is Japanese because he was a true patriot. He would never entertain, he would never accept anything that is foreign. So anyway, the man, the soldier, he is brought to that room. When he is brought, Dr. Sadao feels that he is light like a fowl. Fowl is a hen. Hen has the weight of its feathers and its body structure. So just like the hen, he says that the man was very light. Why? Because for a long time he had been starving. For a long time he had not eaten anything. He is brought to that room where the arrangements are being done. Hannah, his wife, she tries to make all the arrangements as she brings the quilts and the mats. She put the mats on the floor and he is laid on the floor. And then she put the quilt, even though she was a little bit hesitant. Why? Because the quilt was silken quilt and it was pure white, and she was afraid that it would be stained, it would become dirty because the man was in completely a wounded situation, right? And then too, he had been found on the seashore. So definitely he must be wet as well as he had been bleeding. So she was afraid that the quilt would be stained, yet she had made all these arrangements for the soldier. Yes.
He is so dirty, she murmured in distress. Yes, he had better be washed, Sadav agreed. If you will fetch hot water, I will wash him. I cannot bear for you to touch him, she said. We shall have to tell the servants he is here. I will tell Yumi now. She can leave the children for a few minutes and she can wash him. Sadao considered a moment. Let it be so. He agreed. You tell Yumi and I will tell the others. But the utter pallor of the man's unconscious face moved him first to stoop and feel his pulse. It was faint, but it was there. He put his hand against the man's cold breast. The heart too was yet alive. He will die unless he is operated on, Sadao said, considering the question is whether he will not die anyway.
Yes,
Hana,
wait here. Right? Now, what it is, she felt that he was dirty. She murmured, she whispered in distress, she was anxious. Then Sadao decided that, okay, let us first clean. Right? So she told Hana to get some hot water so that he could clean. She thought that she would tell the servants to do it. Yumi is one of the servant who is actually the caretaker of her children also. When both the husband and wife busy, she takes care of the children, right? So she said that she would ask Yumi to leave the children for a few minutes and help them there. Sadawa agreed. He permitted, right? Now, but the utter pallor of the man's unconscious face moved him first to stoop and feel his pulse. He had seen utter pallor, utter complete, pallor, paleness. He found that the man's face was completely pale. Why pale? Because of weakness. Why pale? Because he was starving for days, he has not eaten anything. The man was lying unconscious. His face was so pale that Dr. Sadao decided to stoop to bend and check his pulse first. It was faint, but it was there. He checked that the pulse was low, but it was there, meaning the man was alive. He also touched his heart. He also checked his heartbeat. It was there, so man was alive. Right? But Sadao, after that, he considered that he needs immediate operation, immediate surgery. And if that surgery is not done, he might die. Now, here is the statement. He says, the question is whether he will not die anyway. In the first statement, he says he will die unless he is operated upon. If he is not operated, he will die. In another statement, he says the question is whether he will not die anyway. Try to understand this statement. He means to say that whether he is operated or he is not operated, whether he is saved, whether he is operated or he is given to the Japanese army, but he will die either ways. His death is certain. Why? Even if he is operated, after that he would be given to the Japanese army, they would kill him because he is an American enemy. If he is not operated, then also he will die. So either way, whether he is operated or he is not operated, he will definitely die. His death is certain. This is what Dr. Sadao thought. Hana cried out in fear, don't try to save him. What if he should live? She is very much scared and she tells her husband first not to save him. Because she says, what if he should live? It's a question mark. What does it mean? She is trying to convey if he survives, then he would be a trouble for them. Then it would be dangerous for them. Why? Because if he survives, if he is alive, then Sadaus will be accused, they would be suspected of helping an American enemy. Then they would be accused of befriending with the enemy. They would be accused of betraying Japan. They would be accused of betraying their country and the countrymen. So this is what she said, that there is no need to save him, because if he survives, if he is alive, it is going to be a trouble for them. What if he should die? Sadao replied. He stood gazing down on the motionless man. He says, so what if he dies? So, and then he keeps on watching, he keeps on looking at the motionless man, meaning the man who is lying in an unconscious state. He says the man must have extraordinary vitality or he would have been dead by now. He said that he had suffered so much, he has not been eating, he has been starving, he had not eaten for days, and he had been shot. He has got wounded. He had been through the pointed rocks of the sea, and still he survived. It is all because of his extraordinary vitality, energy, because of which he is still alive. And if he had no energy, he would have been dead by now. Then he says that he must be 25. And usually at this age, the young men, they are quite energetic. So is this man. That's why he had survived. Right? Yes, carry on, please.
You mean die from the operation? Hannah, Hannah asked. Yes, Sadao said. Hannah considered this doubtfully, and when she did not answer, Sadao turned away. At any rate, something must be done with him, he said, and first he must be washed. He went quickly out of the room, and Hannah came behind him. She did not wish to be left alone with the white man. He was the first she had seen since she left America, and how he seemed to have nothing to do with those whom had known their here. He was her enemy, a menace, living or dead.
Yes, Aminus. Yes, what it is now. So they have decided to clean him first. Dr. Sadao, he went out of the room to get some, of course, his emergency kit and the surgery kit, whatever it is. And Hannah was left alone in the company of that wounded soldier. Hannah was scared. Why? Since she had left America, she had not come across any American. That he was the first American whom she had met since she had left America, right? And she did not even meet those whom she knew very well. And this man was her enemy, a menace, a troublemaker, a danger, living or dead, whether he is alive or he is dead, he being in his company is going to be dangerous for the family. Why? If he is alive, it would be considered that they are sheltering an enemy. And if he is dead, it would be against the ethics of a medical professional that he allowed a wounded soldier to die. Right? And then what happens in Dr. Sadao? He would earn disrepute. He would become infamous. Look at the doctor. He allowed a soldier to die. Right? So this was the conflict going on, not only in the mind of Dr. Sadao, but his wife as well. In 1999, when Kargil war had broken out, at that time also, that many Pakistani soldiers were killed by our army when they were crossing Kargil. And after they were killed, our army had decided to give them back to their government. And you will be surprised to know that Pakistani army, they refused to acknowledge them. But our army, our soldiers, they had buried them and performed their funeral rites and rituals according to their religion. Why? Because they were also soldiers, however, enemy soldiers. So this is humanity. Is that clear? Yes, otherwise they would also not have cared. Indian army would not have cared. There are our enemies. They have been killed. Fine. They would have thrown them across the border, but no, they did. They didn't. Very respectfully, they had performed their last rites. Right? Yes. Carry on, please.
She turned to the nursery and called Yumi. But the children heard her voice and she had to go, in for a moment and smile at them and play with the baby boy, now nearly 3 months old. Over the baby's soft black hair, she motioned with her mouth, Yumi, come with me. I will put the baby to bed. Yumi replied, he is ready. She went with Yumi into the bedroom next to the nursery and stood with the boy in her arms while Yumi spread the sleeping quills on the floor and laid the baby between them. Then Hana led the way quickly and softly to the kitchen. The two servants were frightened at what their master had just told them. The old gardener, who was also a house servant, pulled, pulled the few hairs on his upper lip. The master ought not to heal the wound of this white man, he said bluntly to Hana. The white man ought to die first. He was shot, then the sea caught him and wounded him with her rocks. If the master heals what the gun did and what the sea did, they will take revenge on us. I will tell him what you say, Hannah replied courteously. But she herself was also frightened, although she was not superstitious as the old man was.
Yes,
Could it
just a minute, please. Now, what it is, she went to call the servant. She called Yumi. She called the other servants, the cook, the gardener, etc., and she told them the whole situation. Yumi had come in, but you see that these servants, they were superstitious. Number one. Number two, they suspected they did not like this idea. One thing is that they were superstitious, another thing is they were orthodox. They were old fashioned people. They did not like this idea that Dr. Sadao would be healing the wounds of an enemy. As the gardener said, the master ought not to heal the wound of this white man. He was a white man, he was an American. Why should the doctor help him? Being a Japanese, why should the doctor help him? Why should he heal his wound? He said that let him allow him to die. He should be allowed to die. He should not be given any help. And then what reasons, what logic he gives? He says first he was shot. He was shot with the gun. And it means that he deserved to be killed. So he should be allowed to be killed. And then the sea caught him and wounded with her rocks. First, the man killed him with the gunshot, and later on, nature also did not spare him. Because how sea waves had also caught him with their sharp pointed rocks and worsened the wounds. So we should not play with the nature. It means this is an indicator that he deserved death. So he should be allowed to die. And if our master, if Dr. Sadao heals his wound, then perhaps the nature can take revenge on us. Meaning anything tragic, anything bad, any evil thing can befall on us. There are so many superstitions that we will believe, right? So this is also, he also thought, or the servants also thought, that the nature would play an evil on them if they help. If Dr. Sadao helped the American soldier who was an enemy. I hope it is clear to you, this very statement.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So Hannah replied courteously, politely. Hannah assured them that she would definitely convey this to Dr. Sadao. However, she was not superstitious, but she was definitely scared. She was definitely scared of the consequences of sheltering this American enemy and then helping him. You see that they were going to do something good. They were going to do it for a human cause, but and she knew that this humanity would definitely land them up in a trouble. They might be accused of being traitors just as the servants they suspect. Is that clear? Could it ever be well to help an enemy? She was thinking, is it okay? Is it right that we should help an enemy? Nevertheless, she told Yumi to fetch the hot water and bring it to the room where the white man was. Anyway, she just ordered Yumi to get hot water to the room where white man was left. That is to clean his wounds. Right? Yes, carry on, please.
She went ahead and slid back and the partition. Sada was not yet there. Yumi, following, put down her wooden bucket. Then she went over to the white man. When she saw him, her thick lips folded themselves into suburbans. I have never washed a white man, she said, and I will not wash so dirty a one now. Hannah cried at her severely. You will do what your master commands you.
Yes. Now what here it is? Hannah had taken Yumi to the room. However, Sadao was not there. Yumi put her wooden bucket there. She bent over the white man, but her thick lips folded themselves into stubbornness. First of all, understand her refers to Yumi. Yumi's lips folded into stubbornness, meaning Yumi was giving an expression that she had made up her mind not to clean, not to wash the white man. This is an expression of her determination. What she had determined, what she had decided, this is an expression of her decision, firm decision. I have never washed a white man. She saw, and soon she said, no, this is a white man. I will not help. I am not going to clean. And I will not wash so dirty a one now. And he is so dirty. She says, no, I will not. However, Hannah cried, Hannah screamed at her, giving her orders that she has to do what she is ordered to. But no, Yumi would not agree to this. Yes, carry on.
There was so fierce a look of resistance upon Yumi's round dull face, and Hannah felt unreasonably afraid. After all, if the servant should report something that was not as it happened. Very well, she said with dignity. You understand, we only want to bring him to his senses so that we can turn him over as a prisoner. I will have nothing to do with it, young Yumi said. I am a poor person and it is not my business. Then, please, Hannah said gently, return to your own work. At once, Yumi left the room, but this left Hannah with the white man alone. She might have been too afraid to stay had not her anger at Yumi's stubbornness now sustained her.
Yes. Now, what here it is? There was so fierce a look of resistance upon Yumi's round dull face, meaning Yumi had clearly indicated that she refuses. She plainly refused. She plainly refused that she is not going to clean the man. This made Hannah very much afraid. Why? She was afraid if the servants are displeased, then these servants might go and complain about the couple or the family. Right? They might report, they might complain. There's something wrong they are doing. Anyway, then she tried to pacify Yumi. with dignity, very calmly. She said, "You understand, we only want to bring him to his senses." She tries to pacify Yumi so that Yumi does not go and complain. She says, "Yumi, try to understand, we are only helping, we are not helping the man, we are just trying to bring him back to consciousness. The man is unconscious. And we want to bring him back to his senses, meaning we want to make him conscious. So that once he is conscious, then we can easily hand him over to the army or the police as prisoner of war." So this is the logic she gives. But Yumi had made up her mind. She says, "No, I will have nothing to do with it. I am not concerned about it." Yumi does not care whether you help him or not. Yumi does not care whether he is healed, his wounds are healed or not. Yumi does not care whether he is handed over to the Japanese army and the police or not. She says that I just don't want to be entangled. I just don't want to be trapped in any folly, in any mistake. Because she was afraid if she is cleaning, maybe that tomorrow she is caught by the police that she was helping the soldier. So Yumi is playing a self-defensive game. "Then please," Hana said gently, "return to your own work." When she refused to help, then Hana told her, "Okay, fine." Very politely, she told her, "Okay, fine. So you return to work, you go and do your work." Yumi left the room. Now Hana was alone in the room with the white man, but Hana was quite afraid. Hana was quite afraid. She was angry at Yumi's refusal to help. Right? She was angry at her refusal to help, but she continued staying there. Yes, carry on, please.
Stupid Yumi, she muttered fiercely. Is this anything but a man and a wounded, helpless man? In the conviction of her own superiority, she bent impulsively and untied the knotted rugs that kept the white man covered. When she had his breast bare, she dipped the small clean towel that Yumi had brought into the steaming hot water and washed his face carefully. The man's skin, though rough with exposure, was of a fine texture and must have been very blonde when he was a child.
Yes, she whispers. Hana whispers. Hana refers to Yumi as stupid. Why? Because she has refused to help. And then she whispers that unnecessarily she has refused to help, whereas is this anything but a man and a wooden helpless man? She means to say that he was a wounded soldier, an ordinary soldier. So where was Yumi going to be threatened by his presence? Unnecessarily, Yumi had refused to help. Anyway, she tries to help till Dr. Sadao comes, right? She opens the knots of the rug with which the wounded soldier he was covered. She tries to clean his wounds with the small clean towel by wetting it with the hot water that Yumi had got. What he found when she cleans his skin, she finds that his skin had become rough because of being exposed to the sun. But when she cleans the wound, she finds that his skin was smooth and fair. Must have been very blonde, blonde meaning fair. Then she realizes that his skin must have been very fair when he was a child, because when she cleaned her wound, she found that the skin was quite soft and fair. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Carry on.
While she was thinking these thoughts, though not really liking the man better now that he was no longer a child, she kept on washing him until his upper body was quite clean, but she dared not turn him over. He was thou. Now her anger was ebbing, and she was anxious again, and she rose, wiping her hands on the wrong towel. Then, lest the man be chilled, she puts the quilt over him. So thou she called softly.
Ah, yes, great. Now, what happened while she had been thinking of the man that he must be very fair in his childhood, right? But it does not mean that she liked the man. No, she did not like the man. That dislike continues for the man. Why? Because she knows that he is an enemy. He is there, he is cleaning his wounds, he is helping him simply because he is a human being. But it does not mean that both Dr. Sadao and Hana they like the man. No, not at all. So she kept on washing him, she kept on cleaning him, but she could not turn him over. Why? Because she found it very scary. She was very much scared. She was very much afraid. She had been waiting for Sadao. Now her anger was ebbing. Ebbing meaning reduce actually, decrease. Now her anger was ebbing meaning she was no more angry, but she was anxious. She was upset. She was worried what to do with this man. On the one hand, both the husband and wife, they had decided to cure him, to heal his wound. At the same time, they want to hand him over to the police, but they don't know when they hand him over to the police what are going to be the consequences. Or maybe that during that time, somebody goes and complains or misinform the police. So all these things had added to the couple's fear. Being very much anxious, she wipes her, she cleans her hand, however, with the wrong towel, right? And then she covers the man with a quilt because it was very cold. And she was afraid that man should not feel chilled. Now you see that she does not like the man, yet she is concerned that she is covering him, she is cleaning his wounds, then she is covering him with the quilt that he should not feel cold. So what is this? This is his humanity, right? Yes, carry on, please.
Ma'am, ebbing means?
Ebbing meaning, okay, just a minute. Ebbing meaning decreasing, reducing. Well, his anger was ebbing, his anger was decreasing, meaning she was no more angry. Yumi had refused, she had gone, now she herself was cleaning. She was no more angry, right? But she was definitely anxious. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So you had just sent the message that you are running out of the battery.
Yes, ma'am.
So what to do? Will it save if
I'm
you
there,
don't
ma'am.
read?
Now I'm reading.
Okay, fine. Carry on.
He had been about to come in when she called. His hand had been on the door, and now he opened it. She saw that he had brought his surgeon's emergency bag and that he wore his surgeon's coat. You have decided to operate, she cried. Yes, he said shortly. He turned his back to her and unfolded a sterilized towel upon the floor of the tokonoma alcove and put his instrument upon it. Fetch towels, he said. She
Yes.
went
Now what it
to
is, Dr. Sadao had come there with his emergency kit, right? With his surgery kit. And he was wearing a surgeon's coat. That means he was going to conduct the surgery. This is what she confirms that he have decided to operate, and he agrees. His answer is in affirmative. He says yes. And then he unfolded a sterilized towel. Sterilized, disinfected. He had disinfected it. And he just spread it on the floor of Tokonoma alcove. Tokonoma alcove is the floor of the bedroom. Alcove is basically, that we fix the shelves on the wall, right? So he spread that disinfected towel up on the shelf and put all his instruments which he would require at the time of surgery. And he tells Hana to get some towels. He needed lot many towels. Why? Because it is very much possible, and of course it is happening, that his wound is bleeding. He knows that there is a bullet that has stuck up in the wounds, and when that bullet is taken out, then it would bleed more. So he needed towels for that, right? Yes, carry on.
She went obediently, but how anxious now to the men shelves and took out the towels. There ought also to be old pieces of matting so that the blood would not ruin and fine floor covering. She went out to the back veranda where the gardener kept strips of matting with which to protect delicate shrubs on cold nights and took an armful of them. But when she went back into the room, she saw this was useless. The blood has already soaked through the packing in the man's wound and had ruined the mat under him.
Ah,
Oh,
yes. Now she goes, whatever is required by the doctor, she goes and she carries that. And she knows that other requirements are also there, old pieces of matting, because she knew that a lot of blood will flow. And she was afraid that the floor and the mattress, they would also be ruined, they would be stained. Yes, they would. And by the time she comes, she finds that yes, the blood had already soaked through the packing in the man's wound. The packing, the covering of the wound. It had been bleeding, and the mat had already been stained and dirtied by the bleeding of his wound. Yes, carry on.
oh, the mat, she cried. Yes, it is ruined. Sadao replied, as though he did not care. Help me to turn him, he commanded her. She obeyed him without a word, and he began to wash the man's back carefully. Yumi would not wash him. She said, did you wash him then? Sadao asked, not stopping for a moment. His swift, concise movements. Yes, she said. He did not seem to hear her, but she was used to his absorption when he was at work. She
Yes,
only wondered
yes.
of
What it is? Yes, what it is? She was very much that concerned about her mats, that they have become dirty, they have been destroyed by the bleeding. She does express her concern for that, and Sadao also replies in affirmative that yes, they have been trained. Okay, fine. You cannot do anything. What he means to say. Now he wanted to turn over the wounded soldier. He needed her help. She does help him to turn over the man, right? And then Dr. Sadao, he starts cleaning, he starts washing his back where actually he had been shot. While he is doing the surgery, Hana, she tells Dr. Sadao that Yumi would not wash him. Yumi had refused to wash him. And Dr. Sadao, he said, did you wash him then? If she refused, then did you wash? Did you clean him? But anyway, he does not stop. He continues conducting his surgery. He does not stop his movements, right? And he did not seem to hear her when she answers yes, right? He did not seem to hear her. He does not listen to her. Why? Because he is completely engrossed, he is completely engaged in carrying out his surgery. Absorption, she knows that when he is doing the surgery, when he is doing some work, he is completely lost in that. He is completely absorbed in that, meaning he is completely occupied, he is completely lost in that. He does that with full concentration. So he was focusing on the surgery only. He was fully concentrating on it, and this is what she knew very well. She wondered for a moment if it mattered to him what was the body upon which he worked so long, as it was for the work he did so excellently. She had been watching him and she had been wondering that her husband, Dr. Sadao, he had been conducting the surgery on his enemy. And did it matter? Was he concerned about the fact that the man whom he is healing is his enemy? And the man, for him, with such concentration, he had been carrying out the surgery, which clearly indicates that he had a pure intent to heal the man. Do you think that it mattered to him that the man on whom he was conducting the surgery was an enemy or somebody else? Do you think, Manish, it mattered to him?
No, ma'am.
No, it did not matter to him. If it had mattered to him, perhaps he would not have conducted the surgery. It did not matter to him because he thought there is a human who is wounded and he had to help him. He never thought at that time that he was an American or a Japanese. Right? You will have to give the anesthetic if he needs it, he said. He expressed to his wife that he needed her help at the time of giving anesthesia. Anesthesia, you know? Anesthesia is
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am,
when the patient, yes,
ma'am, it is given to the patient, ma'am, so that the in which part ma'am, operation is going on, he will not feel anything.
right. That is to make his body insensitive to the pain, right? So he needed to give him anesthesia so that he could conduct his surgery smoothly and the man does not feel pain, right? She repeated blankly, but never have I. She is a bit reluctant. Why? It is but natural because she had never done it before. It is easy enough, he said impatiently. Actually, he does not want to waste the time. And once the wound is opened, you cannot take the time. So that's why he told her that it was very simple. He was taking out the packing now. Packing, which packing? Old packing, old dressing that was done by the American prisoner on his wound. He removed that packing. And then as a result, what happened? The blood began to flow more quickly. Definitely, it is but natural when you remove that packing, when you remove the old bandage from the wound that has not been healed yet, it started bleeding very quickly. He peered into the wound with the bright surgeon's light fastened on his forehead. I hope you might have seen the doctors with this surgeon's light they wear on their forehead, right? So he peered into the wound, he looked into the wound to inspect it with his light. The bullet is still there, and he confirmed, he verified that the bullet was still there. That's why it had been bleeding. He said with cool interest, now I wonder how deep this rock wound is. Now he understands, now he could make out how deep the rock wound is. Why rock wound? Because already it was wounded as there was a bullet, but it had gone so deep because he might have collided with the sharp rocks and the sea. If it is not too deep, it may be that I can get the bullet. He said if the bullet was not so deep, then he could easily remove it. But the bleeding is not superficial, meaning the bullet is not on the surface of the body. It is deep under the body. That's why it is bleeding. Bleeding is not superficial, meaning it is not on the surface. It is deep. That's why it is bleeding. Had it been on the surface, it would have come out. Maybe it would have come out without surgery also. But it was deep. He has lost much blood because of this deep bullet, because of this deep wound. It had been bleeding profusely. As a result, he had lost a lot of blood. Right? Yes, carry on, please.
At this moment, looked up and saw her face, the color of sulfur. Don't faint, he had sharply. He did not put down his exploring instrument. If I stop now, the man will surely die. She clapped her hands to her mouth and leaped up and ran out of the room. Outside the garden, he heard her retching, but he went on with his work. It will be a better for her to empty her stomach. He thought he had forgotten that, of course, she had never seen an operation, but her distress and his inability to go at her at once made him impatient and irritable with his man who lay like dead under his knife.
Yes. Now, what happened? Hannah, when she saw this, when she saw the wound with the bullet deep under the body, she choked. She choked. She got horrified, and she coughed. He saw her face. Her face was as pale as sulfur. He told her not to faint. Anyway, she could not control herself. However, she put her hands onto her mouth, yet she had been coughing. She rushed out of the room. As she rushed out of her room, she was retching. Retching meaning she was vomiting. Dr. Sadao, while carrying out the surgery, he could hear that she was vomiting. But he did not go to help her. He could not, because he never wanted to leave the surgery in between. So he continued with his work. For his wife, he thought, oh, it's good that she is vomiting, it would clear her stomach. Right? Then later on, she realized why why this has happened to her, why she was choked, why she started coughing, why she vomited, because Hannah had actually never seen her conducting a surgery and operation. This is for the first time she had been by her husband's side, and she had been watching him doing an operation, and she had seen so much bleeding for the first time. But her distress and his inability to go to her at once made him impatient and irritable. Try to understand. Her distress, the anxiety, the condition of his wife, and his inability to go. He could not attend to the needs of his wife. She needed him, but he did not attend to her. Why? Because he was unable to go to her, as he had been busy with the operation of the man who was lying there like a dead man. So this very thought that he is neither able to help his wife nor is able to comfort her, this makes him impatient as well as irritable also, that he could not help his wife just because of this man who is lying like a dead man there, but whom he does not know who that man is, whom he does not know, who is totally a stranger, who is an enemy for him. Yet he is giving his 100% to the man, but he is not attending to the needs of his wife. Why? What does it suggest? This suggests his call of duty. This suggests that how Dr. Sadao was such a dutiful soul, a dutiful doctor, right? Who had thought of his duty first, not his own needs, not his own self motives. This also suggests that Dr. Sadao was selfless. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Shall we continue?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. चलो जितना कर सकते हैं we'll do. Okay. Yes.
No. This man, he thought there is no reason under heaven why he should live. Unconsciously, this thought made him breathless and he proceeded swiftly. In his dream, the man moaned, but Sadao paid no heed except to mutter at him. Groan, he muttered, groan if you like. I am not doing this for my own pleasure. In fact, I do not know why I am doing it. The door opened and there was Hana again.
Yes.
With
Now what?
the
Wait a minute, please. Right now you see that what it is. He is fully committed to conduct that surgery. He is doing it with complete concentration, very sincerely, because he is helping a human, right? At the same time, he thinks that why he is doing it, why he is helping this man, why he is helping him that he should survive. Now, when do you think this thought occurs in his mind?
when Hana came.
No, when he looks at the man as an American enemy, then he thinks why he is helping him, right? But otherwise, he helps him just because he is a human. So this is the conflict, right? Unconsciously, this very thought that he's an American enemy, he doesn't know him, why he is helping him, it's sometimes it makes him ruthless, merciless. And he started his operation very fast. He sped up the whole process. What he found in his dream, the man moaned. Which man? The American soldier. In his dream, meaning in his state of being unconscious, the soldier, he moaned, he was crying in pain. He was crying in pain. But Sadao took no notice of him. He never showed his sympathy towards him. Rather, he whispered to the man, groan, groan if you like. Meaning, carry on, keep on crying in pain if you want to. I am not doing this, I am not doing your surgery just because I like it. No, I don't know even the reason why I am doing it. I am doing it just because I am helping another human being. This is actually what he wants to say, right? There comes Hana again. Hana would now join him again and help him again in conducting the surgery.